This is Miss Connell. Welcome, you guys. I'm going to try and get you guys started on the Coral Reef Gizmo Lab. Hopefully, you've already pulled up your document from your course content under the Dropbox for Coral Reef Gizmo Lab. I have it pulled up here on the left, and I've split my screen with the simulation on the right so that I don't have to switch between tabs for you guys. So I'm going to quickly get you guys started on Activity A. I'm not going to give out any answers, but at least you can look at what I'm doing and it'll kind of give you an idea of what you should be doing on your Gizmo. So I'm going to always read the directions that are in this first box. Click Return to Original Settings and Restart. It says on the Conditions tab, click Invasive Species. So over here, I'm going to click Invasive Species. Notice it talks about what invasive species are. They can disrupt ecosystems because they have no natural predators. I'm taking the time to read this to you guys because this will come up later in your CER if you choose to talk about the red lionfish. The red lionfish is a voracious predator of small fish. The crown of thorn starfish eats coral. Both animals are protected by toxic spines. That's all just me reading off of the Gizmo. Okay. Back to my lab document. It also has more information here about the red lionfish, how they were observed in the Atlantic Ocean in 1985. Again, they're voracious predators. Think about what the word predator means. And they're well protected. Today, they've spread through the Caribbean. Number 1 says predict. Select the red lionfish checkbox. Let's do it. And then it says make a prediction on how you think the lionfish will affect the reef. Well, because you're making a prediction, you're not going to manipulate anything in the Gizmo. So go ahead and take a guess. Pause me and take a guess. All right, moving on from that, we're going to do observe. Select the summary tab. So I'm going to go over to my Gizmo. The summary tab is over here. What is the water clarity percentage? Water clarity. What's the coral cover? And how many fish species are present? Your numbers might be a little bit different, and that's okay. That's why we do simulations, is because everyone gets different results, but the trend is still the same. It says experiment. Once you've written down those 3 pieces of information, again, pause if you need to. It says experiment. Click advance year to year 20. So I'm going to click advance year to year 20. And you can see up here how the numbers are changing as I advance the years. Okay. What is the water clarity percentage? What is the coral cover percentage? And how many fish species are present on the reef? Again, your numbers might be a little bit different. From there, pause me if you need to again. From there, you're going to click on Analyze. How will the invasive species, which is the red lionfish that you just added, affect the coral reef over long periods of time? Well, 20 years is kind of a long period of time. Use the Gizmo and look at the simulation to see the changes occurring. So maybe you weren't watching the picture well enough to know what is happening to all of these different organisms. I wasn't paying attention to what was happening to the sponges, what was happening to the algae. Well, guess what? There's a tab right here that says data. And if you zoom out on the data tab, you can manipulate how many organisms you're looking at. I would say select all of them except for crown of thorn starfish because you didn't put the crown of thorn starfish in your population. And then you can look at this graph and look at that. Oh my goodness, this big line, blue line that goes way, way, way up, that's your red lionfish. And all these other ones, you can tell by their color, are showing you what's happening to the other species, okay? So for number 4, you're going to tell me something about this graph. How did the red lionfish affect the coral reef over long periods of time? Okay, you can pause to answer number 4, and I'm going to move on to activity B. All right, for activity B, it says get the Gizmo ready. On the Conditions tab, click Return to Original Settings, and we need to click Restart. Then we're going to select Land Use from the Conditions tab. Okay, gives you a little introduction on what corals need. They need sunlight, they need warm temperatures, clear water, and low levels of nutrients. That's important, such as nitrogen and phosphorus. However, algae and sponges thrive in water that is higher in nutrients. So things like logging, agriculture, and other human activities can add excess nutrients and sediments to the sea. So we're going to click Restart again, just in case. On the Conditions tab, we're going to set logging to 0, sewage to 50, and keep agriculture at 0 as well. Select this Summary tab again, and we're just recording some numbers here. What is the sediment load? What is the nutrient load? and what is the water clarity. Okay, all coming from the summary tab. Pause me if you need to before moving on. Number 2 says predict. The primary effect of dumping raw sewage into ocean water is a sharp increase in the nutrient load. Okay, so we're adding 50% raw sewage, which is going to increase the nutrient load. Wait, we talked about nutrients up in this introduction. Might want to go back and read that. Make a prediction on how you think this is going to affect the reef. So again, we're not touching anything on the simulation, just taking a guess. Go ahead and pause me to answer number 2. And for number 3, we're going to observe. We're going to select the Coral Reef tab. It's going to show us in the picture. It says click advance year 10 times and what changes do you notice? So things that we can look at. We can look at the picture and we can look at these numbers over here. So let's keep an eye on the picture and see what types of changes are occurring over 10 years. Is anything becoming increased? Anything becoming decreased? And now we can compare these values as well to the ones that we recorded up here to answer number 3, which says what changes do you notice? Just make a couple observations there. And then lastly, for number 4, it says analyze. So now we need to interpret our data. So it says look on the data tab, select every organism except for the red lionfish and the crown of thorns starfish. Zoom out if needed. We're kind of too zoomed out, I think. Oops. No, there we go. Okay. So we have about, yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, we have about, you need to read the graph. I'm not going to give you the numerical data. It says, how does the increase in nutrients affect the algae population? So now you just got to find out which color algae was and find it on your graph and tell me about it. How did it affect it? Maybe you could use some numbers in there. Like it started out at this number, ended at this number after the course of 10 years. B says, how does this change the populations of the 2 species that eat algae, which are the parrotfish and sea urchins? Use numerical data in your answer. Okay, numerical data means you're putting numbers in there that you see on the graph. All right, so something you could do, because there's a lot of lines here, we can look at just the algae, just the stoplight parrotfish, and just the sea urchins to kind of just isolate those lines. Tell me about it. Describe the data. Use the numbers on the graph. What kind of connections are you making here? Okay, that's 4B. All right, lastly, for your CER, you need to select one factor. It says right here, what biotic or abiotic factor did you add to the ecosystem in activity A or B? You just need to choose one. So activity A, we added something to our ecosystem. Okay, activity B, we added something to our ecosystem. Choose one of those and put it in your blank right here. Okay, because it's basically saying under changing conditions such as, well, you did change the conditions in 2 different ways. We just want to talk about one. Put a screenshot of your graph. Okay, if I'm going to be talking about my second factor, which was sewage at 50%, I could screenshot this graph, but I'd want to make sure all of my populations were selected. Okay, if I wanted to talk about the red lionfish, I'd have to go all the way back up to the first one, and I would need to reset all the conditions to get my graph back. Then you need to explain it. Use your numbers in the graph on the data. What is happening because you added that factor? And then in the reasoning, by adding, again, this blank should be the same as this blank here. The changes to the ecosystem were, what happened? What populations increased? What populations decreased? What are some things on the summary tab that were drastically changed? And now I want to know why. Why would an invasive species change the ecosystem? What specifically is that invasive species doing to the ecosystem? Or if you choose sewage, why did the sewage increase change the ecosystem? What specifically happened with the populations, and why did those populations change as a result of sewage? You can't just tell me the same thing in the evidence. You need to start connecting the dots in the reasoning. Answer the why and the how. All right, guys, hopefully that helps you with your Coral Reef Gizmo lab. Make sure you submit that to the correct Dropbox, and we'll have it created for you shortly.